Have you ever just stopped and wondered how big, sweeping changes in society actually happen? It's not always this quiet, slow crawl forward. Sometimes change has to be demanded. It's fought for, and it's won by regular people. So let's dive into that. Let's explore the powerful forces that really drive this kind of transformation. Social movements.
Really think about it for a second. How does a society actually change its mind? Is it just new laws handed down from on high? Or some big new invention? Well, yeah, those are part of the puzzle. But the real story, the one that reshapes our values and our lives, often starts right down on the ground, with people coming together.
So to really get a grip on this, we need to be on the same page. What exactly is a social movement? Let's start by breaking down what we're talking about.
Okay, so sociologists Turner and Killian define it as a collectivity acting with some continuity to promote or resist a change. Now, don't let the academic language fool you. The important bits are right there. Collectivity. That means it's a group thing, not just one person's crusade. And continuity. This isn't a one-and-done protest. It's a sustained, ongoing effort to either push for something new or to fight against a change people don't want.
So, what are the core ingredients that make up one of these movements? Well, first, like we just said, they're collective. It's about we, not me. Second, they're planned. This is deliberate action. Think of organized marches and campaigns, not just a random outburst. Third, they're driven by a shared ideology, a core set of beliefs and goals. And finally, the whole point, the end game, is always to create or to stop social change. All right, that's the textbook stuff. Let's see what this looks like in the real world. We're going to jump back to 19th century India, which was just this incredible period of awakening where organized movements started to take on these massive, deeply rooted social problems. And just look at this list. What's so amazing here is seeing how many organized efforts popped up. You've got Raja Ram Mohan Roy's Brahmo Samaj, which famously took on sati, the absolutely horrific practice of forcing a widow onto her husband's funeral pyre. Then you have Mahatma Jyotiba Phule's Satya Shodak Samaj, which directly challenged the crushing weight of the caste system. These were true visionaries leading planned, collective action to change their world.
And that very spirit of reform really lit the fuse for one of the most important and long-running struggles of all, the women's movement. We're talking about a fight for equality that has spanned generations, and it's still evolving today.
You can really see the journey here. It starts in the 19th century, with male reformers challenging these brutal customs. But then it catches fire as women themselves, absolute powerhouses like Sarojini Naidu, step up as leaders in the fight for independence. Then, after independence, this 1974 report towards equality drops like a bombshell. It laid bare just how much discrimination was still happening, and that sparked a whole new wave. That wave led to the modern movement we see today, focused on everything from legal protections against workplace harassment to widespread empowerment. Now, running right alongside the fight for gender equality were the struggles of workers and farmers. Both groups were fighting their own battles, basically demanding a fair shot in a world that was changing incredibly fast. You see, as India began to industrialize, you get this huge new class of factory workers, and they were often facing just terrible exploitation. The early protests were kind of scattered, but to get real power, they had to organize. So in 1920, the All India Trade Union Congress, or AITUC, was formed to give them a single, powerful voice. This was a game changer, allowing for huge actions like the legendary Great Bombay Textile Strike of 1982. We're talking about 250,000 workers who brought the city to a grinding halt to demand better pay. That's collective action on an epic scale. And at the very same time, farmers were fighting their own wars. Under the British, unfair tax systems were burying them in debt, and that sparked these massive revolts. Later on, you get organizations like the All India Kisan Sabha, which gave them a national platform to fight for land rights and fair prices. And what's really cool is how they often joined forces with the city workers. They both knew they were fighting the same system of exploitation. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit, because the next movement we're going to look at isn't just fighting for one group of people, it's fighting for all of us, and for the planet itself. Let's talk about the environmental movement. And maybe one of the most beautiful and powerful examples of this can be summed up in just one word: Chipko. It literally means to hug. And this image just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the nonviolent genius of this movement. Back in the 1970s, when logging companies showed up in Himalayan villages,
The local people, especially the women, just walked out and hugged the trees to stop the saws. Led by activists like Sunderlal Bauguna, it was the most direct action you can imagine to defend their forests, their way of life, their entire world. Another huge environmental fight was the Narmada Bachao Andolan, which means the Save the Narmada movement. Led by Mehta Patkar, it took on the construction of massive dam projects. And what this movement did was question the very idea of development. It asked a really tough question. Can we call it progress if it means drowning villages, displacing hundreds of thousands of people, and destroying the environment? So, from fighting sati to demanding workers' rights, from battling farmer debt to literally hugging trees, you start to see a clear pattern emerging, right? So let's pull all these threads together and look at how these movements really are the engines of social change.
And here's the takeaway. Social change can happen on its own, kind of drifting along. But social movements, that's what happens when people decide to grab the steering wheel. It's the difference between being a passenger in history and trying to be the driver. These movements give a voice to people who didn't have one, and they force new and, often uncomfortable conversations onto the national stage. And that brings us right back to now. These same forces are at play all around us, every single day. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What are the movements, the collective, planned efforts for change that are shaping your world right now?